Alice was 8, she was very ill, and eventually we got to the Children's Hospital in Birmingham, and they diagnosed her with type 1 diabetes.
We went through quite a few years of IVF, which is probably more hard on Tina than it was on me. But you know, we were very fortunate to have Ari in our lives.
So I was used to being with Alice within the hospital environment. I was used to seeing her wired up. I was used to seeing her on drips. I was used to talking to medical staff. I was used to the smell of the ward.
He was truly, truly caring and compassionate. He could read a room even at 3.5.
She was up for anything, really. She just had a lovely sense of adventure, and she never let the diabetes stop her in any way.
Me and Ari had just been spending the whole day together, so I got all of my yogurt, I put them in front of Peppa Pig, and then I just carried on doing what I was doing around the house. I'd finished work that day for the Christmas holiday, and I'd been shopping, I'd come home, and my sister was coming, and I'd had a couple of gin and tonics in the afternoon. Hey, you're on holiday. And my brother came over, and about 6 o'clock, my daughter rang and said, had I spoken to Alice today? Because she'd sent a funny message and didn't know what it was. So anyway, then all the phone calls started.
And then when I went into the living room and I saw he was actually standing up, so I just thought, he's being very still, and I thought, you're trying to pretend that you're being like a statue, no response. And a 3.5-year-old is gonna flinch, move, couldn't be that still. So I thought, this is a bit strange. So as I went closer towards him, like kept on calling him, Ari, why aren't you moving? And then as soon as I went up to sort of see him face on, I saw his face and it looked completely different. And then a few seconds later, I figured out that he was literally, his chin was resting on the blind cord. I said to the consultant, do I need to be there? Because I didn't know if she was having her hypo, which would have knocked her out for a while. Or if it was worse, he said, no, you need to come up. As a parent, you need to be here.
We have pathways through the hospital that start, in some cases, in the pre-hospital environment, that alert the emergency department that maybe there's been a road traffic accident with somebody who's been significantly injured coming into the emergency department. We are then notified of that in the intensive care unit so that we can make preparations in expectation that that patient will be transitioning from the emergency department through to intensive care with whatever other intervention they may need.
The blood sugar got up to 26. So they were trying to stabilise her and get her comfortable.
I can't remember how many doctors and medical professionals were around him, but just to see it was me and Sina and then just people. And, they're doing their best to resuscitate him.
They phoned us at midnight and asked us to go back in. And that's when they said the MRI scan had shown there was about 20 stroke sites.
When a patient has been admitted to the intensive care unit and undergone that period of observation, and we have the certainty that sadly this is an injury or an illness that is going to result in their death, then at that point we explore end-of-life choices.
The consultant will talk to us and say that they're going to have breaking bad news conversations with the family that they're reaching end-of-life care.
And then we will, along with the bedside nurse, we'll have a preparation meeting before going to meet the family to ensure that the patient is eligible to be considered as an organ donor.
I remember Sina saying then, so why don't you just save every organ you can, and why don't we donate his organs?
We had talked about it as a family, and when she'd signed the register, she told me that she'd done it when she was at university. So I kind of knew that she would be happy with it.
The types of organs that people can donate varies hugely on lots of different things. So that's their medical history, their age, medications that they can be on, and actually what's brought them into hospital this time. Have they had an accident or something? So this varies hugely, but what it's really important to say is that the families have control and they need to consent for each specific thing.
We agreed to donate all of his organs. For some reason, I decided not to donate his eyes because he had these huge brown eyes.
We all agreed on one thing, that there was no way that her face was going to be touched, no corneas, nothing. Her face had to stay pretty.
So before we start the operation and before this goes ahead, we'll have a minute's silence.
So you still have that, the surgeons still have respect. So that was wonderful. To know that, it put me at rest.
I think he came out of theatre probably about 5-6 hours later. And, you know, we had the opportunity to sit with him after that in privacy with our entire family. And then we put clothes on him, we held him. I've still got photos of us holding him. I think the best way to describe it was he was a little lighter and had 2 surgical cuts which you couldn't even see.
When you leave the hospital that day, we'll have a plan about what is it you want me to do now. Do you want us to phone you the next day? Some families would like a phone call in the morning after the surgery's all finished to let them know what's happened.
And then we will send a letter with outcome information, letting the family know about the individuals that have received transplants.
And we were waiting and waiting just to hear anything. But then when the letter actually arrived, and you get pre-warned that there is a letter coming, we just sat there. We sat on it for about a week because you just had to find the right moment to open it.
The letter started to the brave family of my brave donor. And it was talking about everything and how he appreciated Alice and he can't believe his luck, and it's sad that she's died, but he will always remember her. And at the end of the letter it says, thank you, 1,000,000 times, thank you.
We know the girl had an external mechanical heart. She only had 1 month left to live. And you know, this truly did save her life. I kept on asking myself, and I don't know if I ever asked Sina, but how do you deal with the death of a child? Just not the organ donation part, but just the death of a child.
I had about 16 months of bereavement counselling up in Birmingham.
I'll never forget the psychologist that helped us. She just said, come and see me, both of you. And we went to see her every 2 weeks for just under a year.
It's what I call, you know, the oxygen mask theory. You get on an aeroplane, you know, in case of emergency, put your own mask on first, and that's it. If you don't look after yourself first, how on earth are you going to look after everyone else that needs you as well? So I decided from day one I was either going to sink or I could swim, and I chose swimming.
What people don't realise is that by Sina and I talking about it, it actually helps us grieve. It's really been helpful where we can positively talk about our experience.
Obviously, I'd rather Alice was here, but she's not. So this is the next best thing I can do to remember her, and I talk about her all the time.
You'll never get over this, but you'll start learning to live with the pain every day.
Some days the grief is debilitating. Some days can't do it, but I know I'll get through it. I've learned that I'll get through it.
I don't think that huge amount of grief changes its essence. I just think you're going to grow around it, and how you live your lives and move on, I think it changes.
If we didn't make that decision to donate his organs and we chose not to, he would have just died. But now we can sit here talking about Ari and how he's left a legacy that is not just the legacy for those children that are recipients of his organs, but also a legacy for our entire family.
It's like the club that any parent doesn't want to be in. But if you're in it, you may as well make the most of it. You know, if you're there, then just see all the positives in it.
I think if families don't get given that choice, we're denying them. We're denying them that hope and that future. We're denying recipients the chance of a transplant.
Get more from the Open University. Check out the links on screen now.